going on, guys? Let's dig into some poetry on OCPoetry, the source of all poetry in reality. Everything starts here. It is that fountain from which all the poetic originates. Right here, right now. Let's do this. All right, baby. Dagadir and I. Dagadir is a good bud of mine. We've been DMing a little bit. Dagadir is wants to share some stuff. Actually, we had a really cool conversation on Urdu poetic form. But Dagadir here wanted me to cover his haiku. He says first attempt at haiku, which is a little bit surprising because Dagadir was trying to come correct and really trying to I don't know what he was trying to do exactly, Dagadir, but wants to be buddies and wants to impress. So I don't know. We'll see what we got here. It is so unfair, darling, that you've forsaken me for a fatso. If 'tis so, go fuck. Well, invective is a popular form. It is not the traditional form of haiku, but forms get repurposed over time, and everything is fair game. I feel like haiku is kind of misunderstood or mistreated a little bit. I'm not like a PhD or whatever in East Asian literature, but I did study it as an undergrad, and I did study Chinese, which obviously doesn't make me expert in a Japanese form, but there's a certain amount of common ancestry there of poetic form in Japan. A lot of these do take their roots in Chinese classical forms. I know I'm just running my mouth now and no one gives a crap. I guess what I'm trying to say is haiku in English often sucks. It's often written as an on-ramp by people who are writing their, just getting started, or people writing really scurrilous or humorous stuff who really have no idea about the craft, which is too bad. Certainly, haiku ought to force people to measure their words very carefully and focus very much on a contrast of imagery. This attempt at haiku, its only image is fatso. There's nothing that I would consider to be, a hallmark of the haiku form where you would have perhaps moon shining down on something, or you'd have distant mountains, or you would have reeds, something. And all those are cliche, I understand, but if you want to put buildings, or you want to put an old pair of sneakers in your haiku, that's fine. But the imagery needs to be central to a haiku in order for it to succeed. And if you're not doing that, I don't think that you're writing a haiku. It's kind of like if you write a sonnet, it's just a list of stuff and there's no volta. There's no proper, the octave doesn't really observe anything before pivoting. Well, it's not a sonnet. So if you don't have a contrast of bold images, it's not a haiku. So back to the drawing board, Dagadir, or show me what you can do out of your Urdu tradition. That sounds more promising to me. It sounds like I could learn something that I don't know, which is very, very interesting to me. Let's go on to the next. Ionize, for all intents and purposes, Ionize sent me this. It's a workshop piece, so I'm happy to have a look. Looks like friend of the channel, Nigel T. Mooseballs, has this pretty much covered. Let's have a quick look and see where Nigel goes with it. Through the fog, illuminating signs tell their tales, directing us where to drive. Windshield wipers clear speckled rain from windshields. Oh, repetition there. As receding reds of speeding cars spark conversations between passengers. Why do I need to know that why can't I just have receding reds? Why does it spark conversations? A blanket of fog encases our car. It sounds sort of narrative-y now. It lost a little bit of that lyric clarity. Headlight beams direct our gaze. Defrosters dehaze fog from... Do I care? Why do I care about your defrosters? Why do I care? I tell my 3-year-old self that decisions can't change. And the fog fades away. Oh, wow. Really? I have no idea what that means, man. Why you're introducing your 3-year-old self on this late stanza. The fog appears again, but I can see properly. The fog disappears. The fog appears. The fog disappears. The fog appears. The fog disappears again. Like, man, like, you know, don't fuck with your reader. I mean, you're going to lose them. It's a strong, there's some strong language in there. I'm not sure about the opening. Illuminating signs tell their tales, directing us where to drive. That's just boring. I'll compare that to windshield wipers, clear speckled rain, and get rid of the from windshields. As receding reds spark conversations. This part I don't understand. Who's conversing with whom? Who is the us? Who's at the wheel? Who's in the back? Can you situate the reader and tell us what the fuck is going on? Because this just isn't doing that. Why should we care? Is this some top quality narrative storytelling? I disagree with you, Nigel. It's somewhat in a lyric vein and somewhat in a narrative vein, and not quite either successfully. Concise and crisp, it's not either of those. You've got it all? No, Moose. We continue with more detail. S3, stanza 3 is stellar. You repeat fog. Could you find a way to show a child your inner child? Oof, looking out from... Nigel! Dude! Come on! You try to help your friend out here, okay? This is not a depth of feedback that is going to guide your friend Ionize to make real progress here. Give us a gloss of, if you're convinced by this poem, give us a gloss of it to show me what's convincing. What is the story that it's so convincing to you? I don't hear a story. Nigel. All right. Let's go on. Verse Ghost, VS Ghost. Saw some of his comments in the last trolling series, the last trolling entry. Here we are with Verse Ghost again. He or she or they DM me this offering, so let's have a look. This topic no longer exists in poetry, in quotes. Okay, bold title. At the edge of a long sleep, the waters awaken to the screaming cacophony of birds. Screaming cacophony is a little bit much, though. The river is passive, turbid, and swollen with mud. Once again, the waters become malignant. Really? There's evil in the waters there. Pure evil. Meanwhile, the leaves unravel from their branches. Meanwhile, tumescent pale imitations of their dead in the gutter. Okay. They begin again to putrefy. Meanwhile, the snow in its mounds decays. The bright chill decays. It's too much. Once again, awakened by the quiet cacophony of worms. So you have cacophony twice in your poem. I'm not completely sold. Awakened by the louder cacophony. Now it's 3 times the charm of flies. Last year's corpse blooms maggots. Dude. Wow. So verse ghost here is really wants to battle ghosts and zombies and everything. Just meanwhile, the rivers unravel from their long sleep. The birds return shrieking. That's good. I like the shrieking birds. It's good. Once again, the gutters swell. The world tilts. Meanwhile, the weeks unravel from the year. Okay. The leaves unravel. Meanwhile, the encroaching sun. So I think there's just too much hyperbole or overstatement. I mean, you can have one or two of those moments in a poem, but this poem is pretty much one sustained bit of hyperbole. And I think what's going to happen is you're just going to lose the reader. I love this opening. At the edge of a long sleep, the waters awaken to the cacophony of birds. I don't know if I need it to this. Maybe you could go one or the other, to the screaming of birds. That could be okay. But you have the screaming again later, don't you? The birds shriek later. Choose one or the other. You know, when you repeat the same imagery and the same stuff, you the second time it happens, either has to come to a very different point at the reader in a very different direction. Or cause them to reevaluate the first time that they heard it. And I don't get that much reevaluation occurring when I re-encounter the birds return shrieking. Not enough has changed in the poem for me to feel moved, like, oh, it's a different type of shrieking now. No, it's the same screaming cacophony that you had before. You're just repeating yourself. Meanwhile, the leaves unravel from their branches tumescent pale imitations of their dead in the gutter. That's not bad. I mean, I think it's a very long line, so you had more control of your line in the first stanza, and now your line length is much more extended. So the reader might feel like you're bending the rules you established in the first, and if you had a good reason for suddenly adding all of these Latinate syllables, it could convince. But I'm not sure. The poem uses these kind of prose narration words like meanwhile a lot. There's several meanwhile, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I don't know. There's a lot of them. I'm not sure I'm 100% with that. I think you could take them out and probably the poem wouldn't really be any different. Certainly wouldn't be any worse. So taking a step back here, Verse Ghost, I mean, you have chops. So either you're an experienced prose writer and you've written prose before, or you're just a talented individual who's gonna write some great stuff. This shows a lot of promise. Discretion is the better part of valor, though. I mean, I think this is too much of a good thing. So let's just scroll down a little bit here. And the poem belatedly is going to offer us an attribution after the feedback links, which I would put this part here. Sorry for loss of mouse control there. There we go. This part here, I guess this whole thing, I would put this right after the title in ital. That's the way to go. So you make it a kind of a subheader or an epigram right under the title. That would be help this poem a lot. And you could just say Zimborska or Wisła Zimborska. You don't need all this context. We don't need to know. I guess maybe translated Clara Kavanagh, maybe. I don't know. I don't even think you need that. I think you could just have this. We have a principle that all poems about spring are automatically disqualified. This topic no longer exists in poetry. It continues to thrive in life itself, but these are two separate matters. So I think the great Nobel Prize winning Zimborska, I believe she won the Nobel Prize, pretty sure, is cautioning a friend or a correspondent here that poems about spring are not to be trifled with, especially perhaps as a beginner. But it's also kind of funny. I mean, the way that she prohibits people from doing things, that's clearly tongue-in-cheek. Szymborska's having a little bit of fun by saying, kind of, how children will block a hallway and try to charge you a fare, and you're like a full-grown adult, and there's a child blocking you, and saying, well, you need a ticket. It's kind of what Szymborska's saying. It's funny, right? And I think VS Ghost here is kind of tipping his cards in a great fucking way here, Verse Ghost, because you're showing us, hey, I know the drill. I know I'm not necessarily supposed to do this as an apprentice poet, but I'm going to try to muscle it up and see what I can do. So hats off to you for being ambitious. I love the Szymborska attribution here. Very, very, very well selected. And I think a lot of Redditors might miss it, but a lot of Redditors should go and Google it, and a lot of Redditors should go read some Szymborska. Verse Ghost is doing a public service here by raising that. Let's see what X Card King does. I like the thematic flip of spring as a season disconnected from other elements. Okay. The way you've structured the themes effectively relate to the underlying cycles evoked, almost provoked by the season that's placed between winter and summer. Well, I mean, good attempt, X Card King. I mean, read the language of the poem, though. I mean, the language of the poem, I mean, is it, does it have economy of language? Is an interesting twist. Why would economy of language be a twist? It's a requirement of poetry to have economy of language. It's required. It's not a twist. It's mandatory. And I'm not sure that this poem does have such economy. It's almost like a haiku, except it's not. I mean, it focuses on imagery, but that doesn't make it like a haiku, where the image is worth so much value that it doesn't need a lot of accessory visuals. This poem is accessorized up the yin-yang. There are objects which many facets and blah, blah, blah. Part of me wants to suggest a few more details. Really? You want to put more details in this poem? Gosh. All right. Well, X Card. I love you, my friend, but, swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Great, amazing, ambitious effort there, Verse Ghost. Keep working. Keep making adjustments. I would love to see more of your stuff. Love to. So please DM me more. And the reason why I dig in and criticize is because you have potential. I care. If you didn't have potential, I would just stop reading. So, folks who watch the channel know if I make it through your poem, that means something. It means an awful lot. Okay, thanks everybody for tuning in. And hey, hit me up with some more stuff. I'm going to have some more time freeing up, I hope. And we're going to do more trolling, more different types of videos, and generally more collaboration, I hope. So all that starts with you guys. Get engaged. Send me some stuff. Let's dig in together. Okay. Talk soon. See you on the other side.